Hello, and welcome back to my channel where I like to review, recommend, and research books. Mostly historical fiction, nonfiction, and true crime. So if you love books, you like history, or you're just a curious person like me, definitely subscribe to my channel. With it being Women's History Month, I want to recommend books that you can read to celebrate this month. Now, these books are going to be a mix of historical fiction and nonfiction. Now, these books are going to be based off of like a true person, a true event, or just women's history in general. You can see behind me that my shelves are a little bit bare because I had to pull all these books that I wanted to recommend, and this takes up like literally probably 70% of my library. So let's get started. So I'm going to start off with historical fiction, and in no order. There's no order to this madness whatsoever. So the first book that I want to recommend is The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. Now, this is about basically a job that women did on Jeju Island that is kind of going extinct. Not a whole lot of people do this anymore. So this is about women that would go out into the ocean and they would pick up crustaceans or fish, whatever, to make a living or to eat from. Now, the reason why the women did this job and not the men is because when the men worked, they were heavily taxed by the Japanese because they wanted them to work for them, because this island is right off of Korea. So the women started doing it to avoid this tax, and they actually turned out to be better than the men because they hold a higher body fat and they could handle, the very cold temperatures. Now, this book has a little bit of a mystery because this is told from the perspective of one female, and this other female used to be best friends, and their relationship goes sour. So that's kind of what this whole story is about. But I absolutely love this book. I would give this one probably 4 stars. Now, this next book is probably still one of my top 5 historical fiction books of all time. A Thousand Splendid Suns. This one, a lot of female rage in this one is all I can say. This is about women in Afghanistan and basically spans over 50 years of women's rights that had been slowly taken away. Now, this follows specifically a woman, or I should say starts out as a girl, and her dad is kind of ashamed of her and her mother. So he kind of shuns them away and hides them away, even though her dad's very wealthy and has many wives. But unfortunately, tragedy strikes and he marries her off to a much older man, and I'm sure you can assume how that marriage went. Her husband later decides that he wants another wife, a much younger wife, and eventually these two women form a beautiful bond, and the ending of this book is so gut-wrenching, but I absolutely love this book. Cannot recommend it enough. This one is obviously a 5-star read for me. Now, this next book, I've actually posted a video about this one, diving deeper into it. Pope Joan. Now, this one I found at a library sale. I had never heard of this woman or the legend or anything, so when I read this book and fell in love with it, I had to know more about it. Now, this book is about a young girl, Joan, in about the 9th century, and she wanted to be educated, and this was during a time where nobody was really educated, especially, impoverished people, but she wanted it, and so she disguised herself as a boy and actually ends up in a monkhood, works her way up, and becomes a very well-known scribe. She finds her way in Rome, and then she works her way up through the ranks and becomes pope. Now, the problem with this is her ending is quite tragic because she gets pregnant. Now, obviously, this does not end well for her, unfortunately. Now, there's 2 different theories on what happened to her, but you can definitely check out my YouTube video to find out what those 2 different theories are. Now, this book, I would definitely give it 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book. Now, this next book is one of my top 5 historical fiction books ever, just like A Thousand Splendid Suns, The Red Tent. Now, this one is about Dinah, who is actually a true woman in the book of Genesis and the book of the Bible. Now, in the Bible, she's barely mentioned, but this is more of her elaborate story. She is the daughter of Rachel and Jacob had actually married all sisters. Now, some of them suffered from like infertility, things like that, but Jacob was a shepherd for Dinah's grandfather. Eventually, their relationship sours, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to take my wives and my children and my flock, and we're going to leave. But unfortunately, it wasn't that easy because revenge is sought, and boy, oh boy, does it start a snowball of just terror through her life. But this book is beautiful. It is about resilience, love, just so many things, and I absolutely enjoyed this book. This is definitely a 5-star read for me. Now, this book was one of my top books for the year of 2025. the Mercies. I had actually posted a YouTube video about this one, diving deeper into it, but this is about the Norway witch trials. Now, this is based on an island on the northeast side of Norway. It's a little tiny island, and one day a huge storm comes in, completely wipes out the male population while they're all out on ships in the ocean. Now, a lot of people saw this as a perfect opportunity because all the women were left to their own devices and left them vulnerable. So a king basically sends this guy who is well known for his witch trials and goes to sniff out the witches. And this just, it is so sad because these women tell on each other too to set some revenge. And also a piece of history that I never even heard about. Obviously, I'd heard about witch trials, but not specifically in Norway. I had no idea it really stretched that far, but this is definitely an interesting read. This one is a 5-star read for me. Now, the next book, The Exiles. Now, this is not necessarily women specific, but this is told from a woman's perspective. This is about the British prisoner transports that went from, England all the way to Australia. Now, this follows a group of women prisoners from their journey there and what it was like when they got to Australia, had to build their own prison, and then they also were used as free labor. And this also is told from a different perspective of a young girl who is a native in the islands around Australia who was basically kidnapped from her home from British settlers, basically to try and quote unquote train a savage, or could teach her is what they were trying to do. And obviously they did not treat her very well. But this has a lot of history to it, and I absolutely enjoyed this book. This book was a 5-star read for me. Now, this next book is a fantastic American history historical fiction, The Indigo Girl. I had never heard of this book, found it at a library sale, and I absolutely fell in love with this book. I would consider this one almost kind of like a lighter historical fiction book, and what I mean by that, it's not as dark as a lot of other things that I read, so to me, this is kind of a lighter book. But this is about Eliza Lucas, who was a true woman. Now, she was, I would say, a girl. She was 16 years old when she was told to take over her family's farm because her dad and brothers were called up to war. And unfortunately, her father left her a nice present of all these debts that he really owed. And they were going to lose the farm. So she had to come up with something to help pay off all these debts. And one thing that was really well known during this time was that the color of indigo was very, very costly. But if she could make it, she could become extremely rich. The problem was only the French at the time had figured out how to make this color. So it was actually one of her slaves that actually knew how to do it because they had worked for the French before. So it's between her and her slaves to finally figure out how to make indigo. And they finally make it, and she ends up becoming the richest woman in America. And not only that, George Washington was also a pallbearer at her funeral. So this is a very interesting piece of history. I absolutely love this book. I have recommended it to so many people, and they absolutely love it. Now, this next book is based off of a true woman, Frozen River. This is about Martha Ballard, who was a midwife, and at the time, there was also a murder that happened. And so she becomes kind of a detective. So this has a little bit of a mystery to it. But she investigates the body and she tries to determine how this man died. And on her investigation, of course, a lot of men were looking down upon her. So this is about her being not only smart and better than them, but also about her figuring out what this mystery is at the same time. So I absolutely enjoyed this book. This one would get about a 4 stars for me. Now, this next book, this is another little piece of American history, My Dear Hamilton. Now, this one is a pretty thick read. It is a slow burn, but this is obviously about Alexander Hamilton's wife and how she met him, their marriage, and just what it was like being married to him. And I'll be honest with you, this doesn't paint him in the most great light. Same with a lot of our founding fathers, to be honest. But it is an interesting piece of history. I did enjoy reading this, but like I said, it is a much slower book. It's not fast-paced, it's a slow bleed, but I really did enjoy this one. I would give this one 4 stars. Now, this next book is absolutely infuriating. Take My Hand. Ugh, a lot of female rage when I think about this book. Now, this is about experiments on women, specifically the impoverished and Black community. Now, this follows a woman who is a nurse and who goes around to her patients, and she finds out that a lot of her impoverished patients were on birth control, getting procedures done without their knowledge or anything, because a lot of these were girls. They didn't know any better. They didn't know what was happening. And this is her about finding it out, and just, it is so incredibly sad that this happened. And this is definitely women's history, and it's very sad. but this one I would give 4 stars. Now this next book is actually based off of sisters, The Inventions of Wings. Now this doesn't dive too deeply into them, but this is actually about the Grimsky sisters. They were huge abolitionists and they traveled all across the US to spread awareness for it. Like I said, this book isn't necessarily all about them, but they're kind of in the background. But again, another piece of history. I would give this one 4 stars. Now I'm going to dive into actually World War II recommendations. So we're going to start off with The Lilac Girls. Now this is about a group of women who end up in Ravensbrück concentration camp and the experiments that they went through, which was absolutely atrocious, but how their friendship had basically kept them going. And yikes, there was just so much that happens in this book. This one is a 5-star read for me. Now this next one, I would consider it almost a World War I/World War II book because it's split, but this is the Alice Network. Absolutely my favorite #1 historical fiction book ever, no doubt. I have recommended this to so many people because it is so fast-paced and just, I just love it because it's female spies. Something about female spy books just really drag me in and hold on to me because they're just so fast-paced. I love it. So this is about a woman who's looking for her missing cousin that went missing during World War II. Now, one of the last few people that ever saw her alive was this grouchy old woman, and she lands on this woman's doorstep, and this woman is not the kindest woman. But she dives deeper into her story so you can understand why she is the way that she is, which she was a female spy during World War I. It's incredible what she went through and what she had to do to get information, but this is a fantastic read. I highly recommend it. This is a 5-star read for me, no doubt. Now this next book is a hidden gem, Angels in the Pacific. I actually picked this up at Costco several years ago and I absolutely love it, and I never see anyone talk about it. So I love when I find hidden gems. Now this is about women in the Philippines that are nurses, and eventually they get captured by the Japanese army and then they are put into a POW camp. Now this book is told from a couple different perspectives. The other perspective is actually of a young girl that is from the Philippines who is there and who is also trying to help these nurses as best as she can. So this has a dual story and I absolutely love this one. This is another 5-star read. Now this next book is an absolute adrenaline rush. Diamond Eye. This is about Mila Pavlichenko, as I believe how you say her name. But this is based off of a true woman. She was a female sniper for the Red Army, and she was known for how many men she had taken out. When she got her fame, she was sent to the US to try to open a second front, during a propaganda, things like that for the Red Army. However, the author had included a mystery into this as well, because while Mila is in the US, someone is coming after her as well. So this is a little bit of a cat and mouse game. It's very thrilling. It keeps you entertained. I absolutely love this book. This is another 5-star read. Okay, the last of the World War II fiction, I'm going to recommend The Flight Girls. Kind of another hidden gem, but this is one of the very few books that have actually made me cry. Oh, it is so beautiful. But this is about the women that would train pilots, and not only that, they would shuttle basically planes from one side of the US to the other so that it could get to where it needed to go, about them testing planes. A lot of information in this, and I absolutely love that. This highlights the WASP, but this is a fantastic read. I absolutely love this one. This is another 5-star read for me. So this next book is actually post-World War II, so it kind of is still in the mix of it, but The Women of Arlington Hall. This is about a group of women that are code breakers, and specifically follows one woman who is breaking codes from the Red Army during World War II, because we found out that they knew a lot more than what they were leading on, especially about us. So it's kind of like the start of the Cold War as well. Very interesting read. I absolutely really enjoyed this one. This one be a 4-star read for me. And last but not least of the historical fiction women recommendations, Come Fly With Me. This is just an interesting kind of lighter type of historical fiction book, but this is about, female flight attendants and Pan Am and what it was like when it first started up, the training, everything like that. So it's just a fun piece of history to also read about. This one I would give 4 stars. All right, that is the end of my historical fiction recommendations. Now I'm going to tell you about my nonfiction Women's History Month recommendations. All right, now we're going to start with nonfiction. Now this book is technically fiction, but it's based off of a true woman and an event, Burial Rites. Now this is about Agnes Magnusdóttir, who was the last person to be executed in Iceland. Now she was charged with a double homicide and arson, And then after she was sentenced to be executed, you know, kind of like how it is now, she still had a few months to spare. And basically they didn't really have a place to put her, but they wanted her soul to be right to go up to heaven. So they had made her live with this Christian family. And she was also made to be, you know, made to converse with a priest while she was basically living there. But as the story develops, you start to question, like, how could this young woman who's quiet, who doesn't complain, how could she possibly do this? Not only that, then you start to wonder, okay, did she deserve what she got? And is she even guilty? So this just gets your mind going, and that's what I absolutely love about this book. The funny part is originally I'd only given this book 4 stars, but as time has gone on and I just keep thinking about it, so now I'm gonna have to bump it up to 5 stars because I did not think I would keep thinking about it. I think I just love that your mind just keeps going as you're reading this. So this one, 5-star read for me. Now I'm going to officially talk about nonfiction. This next book has a little bit of fiction in it just to make it a little bit more of a story. But last year I had gotten into the Tudor period and I just could not get enough of it. So I started reading Tudor period, or even a little bit before, a little bit after. So this is kind of what this category will be. Catherine. This is about Catherine Swynford. She is the mother of the Beaufort line. Now this book, like I said, is told in a story form, so there's a little bit of fiction to it, but I absolutely love this one. This is a thick book. It's a pretty big commitment. It is a slower read, but it has a lot of information in it, and I highly recommend this if you love Tudor period, because this kind of helps with the family tree and everything. But I really enjoyed this book. This was a 5-star read for me. All right, now we're actually going to talk about the Tudor period. And when it comes to King Henry VIII, there's one wife that I just really, really like, Catherine of Aragon. This just came out last year. It's a quick read, but it's strictly about Catherine of Aragon. It has so much information about her, and it even has some pictures in it, so I recommend buying the book. Now, when it comes to Catherine of Aragon and Anne Boleyn, I'm gonna have to go with Catherine of Aragon. She was just very, very educated and held herself better. I don't know, that's just my opinion. But I really enjoyed reading this one. This one is a 5-star read for me. Now, my favorite read out of the Tudor period, Young, Damned, and Fair. This one, chef's kiss. This one is kind of told in his story form, so it's not dry and like overwhelming with all the names and stuff like that. The author did an amazing job sticking to Catherine. So this is about Catherine Howard, who is King Henry VIII's 5th wife and youngest. And she's always portrayed as being this stupid little girl that didn't know what she was doing. But this book definitely says otherwise. She was educated. She knew exactly what she was doing. But this still does not make her downfall any easier. But I really enjoyed reading this one. This one is a 5-star read for me. Now, this last Tudor period book that I'm going to recommend, The Crown of Blood. This is about Lady Jane Grey, the 9-Day Queen. This is about her upcoming and her downfall, and how she never wanted to be queen, was forced to be queen, and then she was executed for it. So definitely an interesting piece of history. I would give this one 4 stars. All right, now we're going to kind of get into random stories. We're going to start off with the second Mrs. Astor. Now, this is obviously about the Titanic sinking, but this is much more about her and her marriage to Mr. Astor. Now, she was a lot younger than him, and this was his second marriage. But she absolutely loved him from the age she was like 12 years old, just saying. But anyway, they get married and then they go on the Titanic. She survives, he doesn't. So this is a little bit about the before, during, and a little bit after. So if you're looking for a Titanic history, this may not be the best, because it kind of, I wouldn't say casually mentions it, but it's like really not a big part of this book. It's more about their romance. But I would give this book 4 stars. Now, this next book is probably one of the most popular nonfiction books about World War II, The Hiding Place, Corrie ten Boom. This woman knows how to tell a story, but this is about her and her family saving as many Jews as they could. The interesting part is they weren't necessarily hiding it. They were pretty much, everybody in the neighborhood knew what they were doing, so it's not really a whole lot of shock that they were caught. Now, not only that, this also follows her time at Ravensbrück and what happened to her family. She's such an incredible woman, and this is a very fast read. I absolutely love this one. This is definitely 5 stars. Now, I just want to add a couple of memoirs of more recent events, because I feel like these women are going to be going down in history, or I think they're making history. I Am Malala. This was the top memoir that I read last year. I know it took me a little while to get to it, but this is such an amazing story. But if you do not know Malala, she lived in Pakistan and she was very big on education. Now, obviously, the Taliban comes in and says women cannot be educated, but this did not stop her or her friends. And she kept on pushing and pushing until one day the Taliban attacks her and, yeah, almost ends her life. And then her and her family have to flee. So this just has a lot to it. And I just love this story. Incredible woman. Loved it. This is a 5-star read for me. All right. Now, the last book that I'm going to mention is one that recently just came out. And I believe this woman is going to go down in history if she hasn't already. Nobody's Girl, Virginia Giuffre. This one was the first book I read in 2026. And this set the bar so high. I still can't stop thinking about it 3 months later. This is about the whistleblower on the whole Epstein thing. I mean, I did not know a whole lot about Epstein. I just knew what the news would say, but I didn't know the deeper part of it. And this story hits it. I mean, if you want to learn anything about what happened, read this book. But not only is it about that, but also her upbringing and how it kind of brought her to be vulnerable to the whole Epstein thing. But unfortunately, she unalived herself last year after suffering so many different things, and it guts me to know that. But her story is so important, and I wish she was here to see the impact of it on these people. But she's gonna go down in history. I'm very grateful for her. If you want to learn about the Epstein, this is a great book. But I will say this is probably one of the most graphic books that I've ever read. So it is a tough read, but I promise you it is an important read. Highly, highly recommend this book if you have a strong stomach. All right, that was a lot of books to recommend and to go through. So definitely let me know if you've read any of these books or if you add any of them to your TBR list. And last but not least, if you have any recommendations on this subject, absolutely comment that as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. If you want more book reviews and things like that, definitely subscribe to my channel.